is a CPA, and she's going to take us even further. God bless.
Thank you, Elder Shamika. Good evening. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. Thank you so much, Elder Shamika, Elder Brenda. It's been wonderful. I've been listening in all week. I have been blessed. I have learned so much from Pastor Brenda and Queen Wiki on yesterday evening, learning how to have good character and integrity over our finances, learning not to limit our savings to just bank accounts, but I believe Queen Wiki, she discussed Bitcoins and virtual currency. So we are expanding our knowledge. And so this evening, I just want to share a little bit about what I have to offer as it relates to retirement funds. Now, so this presentation is meant to be educational, okay? So I want to motivate you all to make educated decisions when you go forward and thinking about retiring. I do want to just highlight a few things that are not necessarily retirement related, but can kind of fall into that bucket, maybe a wealth transfer. You know, the Bible says a good father, but we're going to say a good steward, leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And so I want to talk about wealth transfer and not limiting our resources to just our generation, but leaving things for future generations and maybe some estate planning, looking at some options of trusts. Again, not necessarily retirement fund per se, but looking to have our retirement funds live forever well after we're gone, okay? And in saying that, it is important to create a will, to do estate planning, maybe to have trust and different things in place. Oftentimes, especially when we, as we age, as we know, healthcare costs get very expensive. And a lot of times when we in retirement, if we ever want to get the best service necessary, we may have to spend down our assets and get on Medicaid. And I know a lot of people don't really say, oh, I don't want to be on the system, or, you know, I didn't come to this far to get on the system. But sometimes, inevitably, the system is the last resort. And in that last resort, that means spending down all of our assets, meaning our retirement too. And so if we can just, even as we're talking about retirement funds, start thinking about maybe at some point putting your retirement funds in a trust to protect it from different agencies that will potentially try to take your assets before they provide you with some assistance, okay? And so finally, with the work I do, I see so much division in families. Money divides people. Money divides families. And so it's best to just prepare and plan, okay? People perish because of the lack of knowledge, and creating a will and estate planning, it's just so much value in it today, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to get into the presentation, and at the end, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Sharing my screen. Okay. So my name is Maoris Green, as I have been introduced. I am a CPA. I have a full-time job at a CPA firm, and I also am a business owner with Green Acres Financial Group, LLC, where we do retirement planning. We're going to talk about retirement funds, the types of retirement funds, understanding your risk tolerance, and Queen Wiki and Elder Brenda also kind of talked about risk tolerance. We'll get into some explanations and definitions. The retirement fund consequences from a tax perspective, age 59 and a half, and the penalties that can occur if you withdraw funds prior to 59 and a half. And as we are in a technological age where there are medical advancements, a lot of seniors and a lot of my clients who are older, they have fear that they're going to outlive their retirement. And that's, you know, that's a justifiable fear, because as we age, we're going to need money longer. And so we're going to talk about how we can possibly not outlive our retirement. Okay. So retirement funds. What are retirement funds? Retirement funds are various investment vehicles that can be used to invest money today into an investment vehicle that will return interest income earnings over time. The contributions combined with the earnings can grow based on your investment selections and goals to produce living benefits at a future date. The funds in a retirement account can be invested in a number of different stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or other assets. Those other assets being those Bitcoins and virtual currency that Queen Wiki discussed on yesterday. And they are not taxed on any capital gains or dividends or interest until they are withdrawn. So they're kind of deferred until a later date. So you're not paying any tax on it. Dependent on the retirement plan selected, contributions can be made to the plan pre-tax, which is before taxes, or post-tax, which is after taxes. And we'll get into a few of those examples. So there are several popular retirement, let's see, let me get my little cheat sheet because my screen just moved. Let's see how we can do this. Okay, so there are several popular retirement fund accounts that are familiar to most individuals. However, there are an innumerable amount of ways retirement plans can be coupled, and we like to, in the finance world, say, let's not put all of our eggs in one basket. That beautiful basket that sits behind Elder Brenda, I absolutely love, our nest egg. We want to diversify our assets. So there are 401k plans, which most people are familiar with. And in those 401k plans, there could also be 403b, 457 plans. It just depends on the industry type that the individual is employed with. Then there are IRAs, which are individual retirement accounts. And that's traditional IRAs. And then there are Roth IRAs, simple IRAs, SEP IRAs, Bitcoin IRAs, rollovers as business startups, and then life insurance, surprisingly, can even be an avenue for a retirement stream. And then we all know about the pensions, okay? So we're gonna delve a little deeper. This is kind of our overview of the types of retirement funds that we're going to discuss. And then we're gonna kind of dig a little deeper into each one of them. So the 401k, 401k is derived from 401k of the Internal Revenue Code. The 401k plan is a feature of a qualified profit sharing plan designed to allow employees to contribute a portion of their wages to individual accounts. Elective salary deferrals are excluded from the employee's taxable income, except for designated Roth deferrals, and we'll get into the Roth. Employers can contribute to employees' accounts. A 401k plan is a workplace retirement account that is offered as an employee benefit. The account allows you to contribute a portion of your pre-tax paycheck to tax-deferred investments. This reduces the amount of income you must pay taxes on in that year. So for example, if you made $75,000 and you contributed $5,000 to your 401k, you are only being taxed on $70,000, okay? Investment gains grow tax deferred until you withdraw the money in retirement. If you withdraw funds from the plan before age 59 and a half, you could be subject to a 10% penalty. And the withdrawal can be subject to federal and state income taxes. Because when you pull money out, if you made $70,000 and you took another $10,000 out, you're actually paying tax on $80,000. So even if it doesn't kick you into another tax bracket, it's still paying higher taxes, because if you're in a 10% tax bracket, which you wouldn't be at $80,000, but for simplicity purposes, if you're in the 10% tax bracket, you're paying $7,000 on $70,000, you're paying $8,000 on $80,000, okay? So You could pay taxes, and if you withdraw prior to 59 and a half. So that's sometimes things are just unavoidable, but it's best to be educated before you take out withdrawals from your retirement savings plans. Okay. Some plans offer 401k loans in the 401k program. And if you take a loan, you do have to repay yourself back. You're paying back into the loan. And if you have a set window of time to make those payments, and if you don't, your plan administrator will consider it a withdrawal, and you will have to pay federal and state income taxes. Okay. Sometimes there are what's called a vesting. Okay. So a vesting means that the employer will tell you, you must stay at this place of employment for 3 years before the money that we contribute into your plan is eligible to you. So if in the first year you contribute $1,000 and your employer contributes $1,000 and you leave at the end of that year, what you get to take with you is $1,000, not $2,000, because the vesting period is 3 years. If you leave prior to the vesting period, you forbid getting the money that the employer could have potentially provided you had you stayed the entire time. Okay. Now, this is big because a lot of times we have jobs and the employer does provide a match, okay? Some employers do it 3%, 6%, 7%. The highest I've seen lately is 7%. Do not leave free money on the table. If you are working and you contribute 6%, let your employer match you 6%. A lot of times people say, well, I don't have an extra 6%. If we realize how much we eat out, we spend money on things that we don't need, we have extra money. The more money we have in our pockets, the more money we're going to spend. So sometimes it's just a matter of making things a priority. Investment choices for the 401ks are limited sometimes, and the management and administrative fees can be high. There are limits set by the IRS that tells us how much we can contribute every year to the 401k plan. For tax year 2020, that number is $19,500. And if you're 50 or older, there is a catch-up where you can contribute up to $26,000 in the year 2020, excuse me. So a lot of times we have to play catch up because if life got in the way and different things occurred and we didn't start investing early enough, we have to play catch up, and we have the opportunity with the 401k. Again, as mentioned, there are other types of 403b, which is offered usually with educators and nonprofits, and then the 457 plans, which are offered to government employees. To wrap up the 401k, sometimes when we leave a job and we don't know what to do with the 401k. And oftentimes the 401k is left with the previous employer. If you have a 401k and it is sitting at an employer that you are no longer employed, the likelihood is you're paying higher administrative fees because you are no longer actively participating. You're not continuing to contribute to that plan. So you may be paying higher administrative fees for them to quote unquote house your money. So it is best for you to find another resource to put that money in, or to ask, how much am I being charged, or have my fees increased since I've terminated employment with the company. Okay. Let's see. So this is the Roth IRA. This is the traditional. So that was the 401k. This is the IRA, the individual retirement account. This is the traditional IRA. It works very similarly to the 401k, but the maximum contribution is $6,000 in 2020 or $7,000 if you are 50 and over. So a traditional IRAs can be set up just about anywhere. Usually 401ks are pretty much employer-based. 401k, 403b, 457s, those are all employer-based. Traditional IRAs, we can go to a local bank, myself, different companies. they sell traditional IRAs. You can open an IRA and you can make monthly contributions. You can set it up as a one-time contribution. So IRAs can be you can contribute to them annually, and they are pre-tax dollars going in, and they are deductible on your tax return. Okay, you can contribute up to $6,000 or $7,050 and over. It grows tax deferred, so you do not pay taxes on any of the interest earnings until withdrawal. Many taxpayers can deduct their IRA contributions on their tax returns. And the great thing about the IRA is you can have a 401k and an IRA. So if you had some extra money, if you had maybe a tax refund and you wanted to do some extra things with saving, you can, and you're already contributing to your 401k at work, you can also have a traditional IRA. And so you have multiple streams of income and multiple growth working for you. Similarly to a 401k, if you withdraw money before the age of 59 and a half, you could be subject to a 10% penalty, which can be avoided sometimes according to the IRS rules and regulations. The Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is still an individual retirement account, but now these are post-tax dollars. So this is money that you have sitting in your bank account, and you go take out of your bank that you've already paid money on, and you open a traditional, a Roth IRA. So when you take the money out, as long as 5 years have passed, you do not have to pay taxes on it. Now, personally, I won't give my biases, okay? I just want to stay educated. However, I have small children, okay? And I get decent tax write-offs having small children, okay? When I get older, and I pray that my home is paid off, and I definitely pray that my children are gone on their own, I will not have the same tax write-offs. And so when it comes time for me to withdraw my money from my IRA, the likelihood is I'm going to be in a higher tax bracket later in life because I don't have the offsets of my children and my home. And so if I'm paying, I could potentially pay more during retirement because in a traditional IRA or a 401k, all that money went in pre-tax. And so now when it's time for it to come out, I have to pay taxes on it with no dependents. And so in a Roth IRA, as opposed to the traditional IRA, when my children are older and I have no more dependents and no more write-offs, and I take money out from a Roth IRA, I don't have to pay taxes on that money. And so it could be a better tax situation for me as I age to do a Roth IRA. It is tailor specific. None of these plans are a one size fits all. So that's why I don't want to put my biases out there. This is me personally, but everyone is going to be different. So I just want to make sure that we stay from an educational perspective on a good path. Okay. So the Roth IRA is different compared to the traditional, as in that the Roth IRA is post-tax dollars. The traditional IRA is pre-tax dollars. Now, if you went to a place and you said, I want an IRA, you have a traditional and you have a Roth IRA, you cannot combine them. That's apples and oranges. The traditional IRA is pre-tax dollars. The Roth IRA are post-tax dollars. The pre-tax dollars are considered qualified funds. The Roth IRA are called non-qualified funds. So you cannot mix qualified pre-tax dollars with non-qualified post-tax dollars. Okay. Again, there has to be a 5-year period to pass in order for the Roth to come out tax-free. The downside to the Roth is if you are an individual and your income exceeds $137,000 if single, or $193,000 for married filing joint, your Roth IRA may be limited. Your contributions may be limited. So you may not be able to contribute to a Roth. Now, there are some things called a backdoor Roth where you can put it in and a traditional, take it out and then put in a Roth. So there are some different ways to get behind it, but sometimes there are contribution limitations based on your income. Okay. The next one we're going to discuss is the simple IRA, the Savings Incentive Match for Employees IRA. These types of plans are typical for small businesses. Individuals with firms or companies of 100 employees or less. The employer provides a match very similar to a 401k plan, and it works the same. Pre-tax contributions. You withdraw it before 59 and a half, you're subject to penalties. The 5-year thing with the Roth IRA, where you can only take it out tax-free if you wait 5 years. For the simple, if you take it out within the first 2 years and you're not 59 and a half, you could be subject to 25% penalty as opposed to 10% penalty. So it's best to know going in and making educated decisions which investment you would like to go into. And if you're, again, I can't stress it enough, if you are working and your employer matches, it's best to try to put something toward that so that your employer can get, you can get some extra dollars from your employer. Okay. The SEP IRA, this is a good one for those who are self-employed, because it provides you with the opportunity as a business owner to pay yourself, but to also get a tax write-off on your business taxes, okay? So a simplified employee pension IRA, still an IRA, usually pre-tax dollars, allows you to contribute a portion of your income to your own retirement account if you're self-employed and have no employees. You can fully deduct these contributions from your taxable income. The big difference between the simple, which is the slide we were at before, and the SEP is, for the simple, if I am an employer and I have 100 employees or less, what I do for my employees, what I do for myself, I have to do for my employees. So if I put $30,000 into my IRA, I have to also put that same match in for my employees. However, with the SEP, it's typically one business owner, and so you can contribute up to $56,000. Unfortunately, most employers are not being that generous in contributing up to $56,000 per employee. But if you are a sole proprietor, a business owner with no employees, you have the ability to contribute $56,000 or 25% of your income in that year, whichever is less. Okay, so you get money in your own IRA, plus you get a business deduction. It's a win-win, and it's legal. Okay, so the Bitcoin IRAs. Queen Wiki inspired me a little bit, so I went and tweaked my presentation after she gave hers to kind of just give a little overview of the Bitcoin IRAs. They do exist, okay? The IRS has ruled that the digital currency has an equivalent value of real currency, okay? The IRS Virtual Currency Guidance Notice 214-21 names Bitcoin as an example of virtual currency. For federal tax purposes, the Bitcoin is regarded as property. Okay, so a custodian or a trustee, and when we say a custodian or a trustee, we would think of the plan administrator for a 401k, or someone when you sign up for a new job and they maybe someone in HR says, hey, you want to make your selections on your accounts that you want to invest in. That's what we would consider a custodian. The benefit of having the Bitcoin IRA is that you're invested in a non-correlated asset. And that just means that it's not associated with the stock market. It's not associated with the falling or rising oil prices. If the stock market tanks, it doesn't have a correlation, okay? The Bitcoin is more controlled by the number of investors. And as people grow and put money into the Bitcoin currency potential raises, and the prices rise. So the good thing is, as in most 401ks and IRAs, they're stock bonds and mutual funds. You can have other types of investments with the Bitcoin IRA that are just not limited to the traditional IRA contributions. It's considered a self-directed IRA, which again just means that there must be a custodian or some qualified trustee to manage the asset on behalf of the IRA, which could be costly. Another interesting one, which isn't talked about a lot, but it is an option, and Elder Shamika asked a question yesterday about the laundromats and vending machines and different things like that. So let's say you had a 401k, okay, at your job, and while you're still working at that place of employment, you say, hey, I want to start a laundromat, okay? You could take out money from your 401k, and you can do what's called a rollover business startup IRA, ROBS, okay? In order to do a ROBS, though, that 401k money that you're taking from your current place of employment, you have to start a C corporation. Now, there are a lot of different tax structures. You have an S corporation, you have an LLC, you have a sole proprietor, a mom and pop shop, okay? You have a lot of different taxing structure. A C corp is a type of tax structure. A C corp typically is the Walmarts, the Googles, the Apples, the large corporations, okay? That's what we would consider a C corporation. You could take your money from the 401k, start a C corporation, open a 401k plan under now your C corporation, invest that 401k money into now your new 401k money, and the corporation now owns stock, and then you cash in the stock to purchase your laundromat. Okay, so now your laundromat is a part of your C corporation. That's now your business. Okay, so what's the upside and what's the downside? Well, the upside is you have a business that could potentially be lucrative, right? The downside is you have a potential that the business can also tank, because we don't know. It's a gamble. It's a risk. We don't know. Okay. Also, my earnings are going to be more on 500,000 in my 401k as opposed to 200,000 in my 401k, right? Because the higher the balance, the more interest earnings are working for you because the balance is higher. So there are some pros and cons. Another pro or con, the C corporation tax rate, it used to be 35%. Okay, so if it's lucrative, you're now paying income tax on the corporation at 35%. Okay, so then was that worth it? However, right now the corporation tax rate is 21%. The IRS changes their tax laws, they change their income tax rates, so it's just very discretionary. Again, these are all points of education, just making you aware of what is available. To do the ROB, you have to be at least 59 and a half or older. Okay. And the management fees and startup costs of the ROBs are very expensive. Okay, so now we're moving on to types of life insurance. Life insurance that can be used as a retirement plan. So a life insurance retirement plan is considered almost like a whole life policy, but not a whole life. We probably have heard in life insurance term whole life, and then there's another one called index universal life. And it's really anything paid over the cost of insurance now becomes a savings plan. And you can, the software will tell you kind of what you can pay to get X amount of dollars over a future period of time. If I can just take one step back, if you were to pass away, God forbid, in your years of retirement or even prior to, anything that goes to your beneficiary from any of the pension and of the IRAs that we had discussed, or the 401ks, or any of the retirement plans, go to your beneficiary, and they are paid, and they have to pay taxes at their tax rate on the money that they receive from your 401k, IRA, things like that. Life insurance is typically tax-free to the beneficiary, okay? So just to repeat, if I were to, God forbid, if something were to happen to me, my family, and I have a 401k or some type of retirement savings plan that I put in pre-tax dollars, my beneficiaries take those out and they pay income tax at their tax rate. Okay? That's not the case with life insurance. Life insurance is usually a tax-free event. Usually, not always. Okay, so I'm just going to read this. An LIRP, Life Insurance Retirement Plan, is a life insurance policy that incorporates many of the tax-free features of the traditional retirement accounts like a Roth IRA. Cash grows into income tax-free inside your policy during the contribution years, and income is taken income tax-free through policy loan. Typically during retirement, long-term care benefits can be costly. And these are not things that are always factored when, you know, when people are ready to retire, they're ready to retire because they're tired. They've worked a number of years, they're ready to call it quits, and they retire. But they don't consider the things that come after that. I've been working with clients and I'm saying, okay, will your home be paid? Will your car be paid? Have you factored in these expenses? Do you intend to travel? Oh, I haven't thought about that. These are things that we need to start thinking about if we want to retire. We need to have, what will our fixed expenses be and what will our variable expenses be, so that we'll know exactly how much money we need in retirement. And then we can kind of come up with a speculation of how long your money will last, okay? So again, the life insurance policy can have long-term care benefits built into the policy. And so if someone has to go into a skilled care facility, you can use money directly from your life insurance policy to do that without having to pay taxes on that money, okay? Unlike many other retirement plans, payments to beneficiaries upon the retiree's death are paid to the beneficiary tax-free. Okay. And then we have the good old pension. And we don't hear about these anymore. That used to be the ace in the hole. You had a job that was offering a pension. That was, you know, hey, I'm out, you know. Pensions are like dinosaurs. They're becoming very extinct, okay? I mean, because they were very generous, you know, back in after the baby boomers and things like that, and everybody, the depression, and then everything kind of rebounded and the jobs were lucrative. The pensions were it. And now you hear people and hardly anyone's doing pensions anymore. But for those individuals who do still get the pension, my hat off to you. A pension plan is a type of retirement plan where an employee adds money into a fund. Typically the employer adds money. Sometimes the employee didn't even have to do much. They just had to have 20 years of service or 30 years of service, and that was it. And so it was a defined contribution plan or a defined benefit plan, and that was it. It was very little to do. And so pensions are still, but they are pre-tax dollars, and so when you take them out, you have to pay taxes on them, okay? With all of these, so the age is steadily growing. Retirement used to be 62 for Social Security, and then it went to 67, and now it's 70 for retirement. And as we continue to age, and you can still take it out at 62, but you're going to get a significant amount less if you take it out at 62 as opposed to waiting for retirement age of 70. Well, the thing is, the baby boomers, they're draining the Social Security, and so we can't. They can't keep paying out fast enough, or it's going to completely drain it. So they have to push the age back. Well, Social Security can become taxable. Your Social Security is taxable if you have additional sources of income. Okay, so if you have a pension or if you have a 401k that you're withdrawing and you're collecting Social Security, up to 80% of your Social Security is taxable in addition to your IRA, 401k, or whatever withdrawals you're making from your retirement sources. So that is something, and a lot of people say, I'm old, I paid my time, I did my time, I still got to pay taxes on my Social Security. Yes, as long as you have additional sources of income, you have to continue to pay taxes on your Social Security. And it doesn't matter. And I have some 90-year-old clients who have a big problem with it. And I'm just the bearer of the news. I can't say anything otherwise than what the IRS laws tell me. So that's a big factor to keep in mind when withdrawing funds from your IRA in retirement years if Social Security is taken. Risk tolerance. Elder Brenda talked about this a little bit. Our risk tolerance. Queen Wiki talked about this yesterday, and from the sounds of it, she has a high risk tolerance, and I'm not that girl. My risk tolerance is kind of low. I mean, I'm gonna say moderate, but definitely not high. So risk tolerance is how much money are you willing to lose? Okay, how much money are you willing to lose? And so when you sit down and you go through your investments and how you're going to select which investments you want to invest in, you got your very volatile, which means it changes very often. You have your very volatile investments, and then you have your ones that change $1 here and $1 there. And so that's your tolerance. The high tolerance is I'm willing to take a lot of risk. Low tolerance is I don't want to take any risk. Put me in a money market, give me my 1%, and I'm happy. Risk tolerance, you may get 50% today, you may lose it all tomorrow. But you know what? Anything that goes down, it's going to come back up. It may get back to 25. It may not get all the way up to 50. But here's the thing with understanding risk tolerance. The older we get, the less our tolerance better be, because we can't afford to rebound. When we're at 60 and 70, when they had the crash, the housing market crash in 2009, a lot of individuals had to work longer than they expected because no one saw it coming, and it tanked so fast that a lot of people lost their money. And when you're 60 years old, you don't have a whole lot of more years to get back that $100,000 that was lost. And so some of the clients that I have now who are in their 60s and 70s, I say, go to your plan administrator, let them know, take me straight low tolerance. I want to make sure that I'm not losing a penny. I can't afford to lose a penny. Put me in a plan that within 5 years, I know I'm going to retire so that I'm not subject to a lot of volatility. Okay, so those are just things to be thinking about. And let's see. These are things we kind of talked about. You may pay taxes on your Social Security. There are a lot of fees built into 401ks. Your investment options may be limited in a 401k. You can't touch the money before 59 and a half. If you do, you're subject to penalties. But there are some ways to get around it from a tax perspective. So if you purchase your first home, you can use your money and you won't be subject to the 10% penalty. You will still pay income taxes, but you won't be subjected to the penalty. Or if you took the money out because you were unemployed and you used it to pay healthcare costs, hospitalization, or even medical healthcare premiums. There are a number of ways that you can get around the 10% penalties, or if you had a hardship and different things like that. If you're not 59 and a half, there are some ways from a tax perspective to get around that. Required minimum distribution. So what used to happen is individuals had saved up all this money, and when it became time for them to retire, they said, well, I don't need it. I don't need it because I have other sources of income, so I'm not going to take the money. And so the IRS got smart and said, I'm going to require you to take your money, because if you don't take your money that went in pre-tax and you never paid taxes on it, and you suddenly live to 100 years old and you've never paid tax on any of that money, we're getting stiffed. So the IRS said, okay, now I'm going to require you, when you reach 70 and a half, whether you need the money or not, you're going to take that money because you're going to pay tax on it. So actually starting January 1st, 2020, that age is now 72. But in the past, prior to January 1st, 2020, the age was 70 and a half. And so a lot of times when someone turns 70 and a half, they say, hey, why is my retirement account dwindling? I didn't need this money. And say, hey, the IRS requires that you take this money. Now you can have your retirement account set up to automatically distribute funds to a qualified charity. And if the IRA custodian or the 401k or the retirement savings plan custodian sends that money directly from your account to a qualified charity, you could avoid the taxes because it went to a charity. But it has to be $100,000 or less. So that's RMD, required minimum distribution. All right, so how do we know if we're saving enough for retirement? This question goes back to what expenses will you have in retirement? Okay, really with a fine-tooth comb, going through all of your expenses realistically. Another thing that's rarely considered is inflation. As we live and get older, $2 is not going to be $2 anymore. You know, $2 could turn into $10, but if we're budgeting in 10 years still on the $2 scale, we're missing it. So those are things that must be considered and that will assist in making sure that we don't outlive our retirement savings. Okay. Now this is just my mom. My mom, she doesn't have a lot of retirement savings, okay? And so she went on a program so she can have her healthcare premiums paid, but she could have very little assets. And so I went with her to meet with the social worker, and they told her, you need to get your life insurance policy assigned to the funeral home. So you have to pretty much prepay your funeral. And we said, well, why is this? They said, because as it stands, Medicaid can take your life insurance policy, no matter who your beneficiaries are. We said, well, why is this or how is this? And they said, because Medicaid will over time pay so much money to support your health care costs that Medicaid has to some way find a way to reimburse themselves. And so they will take life insurance policies or other assets that you think may be going to your beneficiaries to repay themselves. And that's called the Medicaid Estate Recovery Program. And these are just a lot of little secrets that are unknown. And sometimes we don't even know they exist until we get into that position. And then there's nothing that we can do about it. And so I want to encourage you to stay educated, get educated, understand the dealings of your assets, and know how to protect them. And I thank Global Watch Ministries for inviting me to share. It's been a pleasure sharing, and I'm just going to leave with 3 John 2. Says, Beloved, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. So what's it going to be? You're going to keep working? You're going to retire? What's the plan? But prayerfully, you've been educated enough to make a very educated decision.
Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
The first is, why can't you, wait a minute, I got to move my box over. Okay, hold on. Okay, here we go. Why can't you draw Social Security from a spouse, even if you get pension, regardless of how much you get from pension?
If the pension is a government-based pension, which I think is the craziest thing, but I don't make the laws. If I make the laws, government would probably be broker. But the government says they're not going to pay one household two sources of government income. So it's likely that the pension is a government pension and Social Security is government. So they're not going to pay you twice. And again, I think it's crazy because I think if you paid into Social Security, you're due Social Security. But again, I don't make the laws, but that is the reason. They will not pay, governments will not pay into one household multiple times.
Okay. Another question is, you mentioned you can put your money into a trust, then it is protected from spending it down or having it taken. Can you explain that for clarity again?
Yes. Now, and I don't do estates and I don't do trust, but trust is like an individual. It's like its own separate entity. And so if you put money in a trust, you have a trustee that manages that trust and you have beneficiaries. And so then the beneficiaries will be paid out based on however the trust was set up, but it's a protection. It's like a limited liability company. It's a shield. It's the extra layer of protection. And then let's say you put money in a trust and you have 5 kids, you can set each of the children to be a beneficiary, and each beneficiary will get 1/5 or whatever is designated in a form of a K1, a Schedule K1, and they will report any of their earnings or profits on their return from that K1. So it's like setting up a like an estate. So like if someone passes, typically someone hires an employee if it doesn't go to probate, and the attorneys work out how to divvy things up. But I don't do estate planning and I don't do trust, but I do know that there is a level and a layer of protection in trusts that can protect from the Medicaid spend down.
Okay, can I get my pension and Social Security together? If so, what percent?
Again, I don't. So again, it depends on the pension source. And when they say what percent of what?
Okay.
What percent of Social Security? What percent of pension?
I'm thinking, I don't know, I'll wait for them to respond, but I'm assuming what percent of Social Security?
Social Security is usually, most of us have received something in the mail saying if you were to retire today, this is how much you will receive in Social Security benefits. And so Social Security is an amount that is determined based on age, the number of years of service, and the amount that has been paid in. So that is a flat amount determined by Social Security.
Okay, so they say my pension is not government based. So that's what they were trying to see, how will they get their Social Security to be. So it's a flat rate based on their age and how much time they put in.
What would their Social Security be taxed at? Is that the question?
How much of their Social Security will they get since they have a pension, but it's not government based?
Whatever Social Security tells them that they're eligible for. It depends on their age, but that's a Social Security question because it depends on their age. So if they're prior to the age 70 and they're not at full Social Security age, then they're going to be limited. And so every year so if they're 62 and they retire, at 63, 64, and through 70, their Social Security is going to continue to get higher and higher until they reach full retirement age. But I can't tell the percentage. That's a question that they will have to ask Social Security.
Okay. I'm just checking my sources, all my sources, to make sure I have all the questions. Okay. Okay. Oh, Lord. Question.
I wanted to know, for those that reach 7 years old and they want to go into the retirement funds, it was mentioned that you could have money taken out for charity where it would help your tax situation. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Can you repeat it, Elder Schmidt?
Can you repeat that?
For those who are waiting to withdraw money from their savings for retirement at the age of 70, you mentioned that you could have money donated to a specific charity that would help reduce your taxes?
Okay. Yes, I got it. So if you are 70 and a half and you have a required minimum distribution that you must take out, let's say it's 10,000, it sums up to be 10,000 for the year. Again, you're paying tax on an additional $10,000 of money. But two things, and it depends. If you're single, let's just say you're single, okay, and so if you're single, your itemized deductions, and I'm getting kind of technical, but your itemized deductions on your tax return have to exceed $12,000, okay? If you don't exceed $12,000, but you give a charity $8,000, it's not going to matter on your tax return because you didn't itemize your deduction. So you can give $8,000 to a charity that you pay out of pocket, not from your retirement account, and that $8,000 isn't going to make a difference. However, if you have the money and it goes straight from your retirement plan to a qualified charity, and you never see it, it goes straight to the charity, and let's say it's that same $8,000, you're not going to be taxed on that $8,000 because you never saw it. That $8,000 went straight to the charity. It wasn't going to help you on your return anyway because you did not itemize, and so it wasn't enough to throw you over the standard deduction. So it helps you in that you still have to take the RMD, but instead of paying taxes on it, it goes straight to the qualified charity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Fine.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, Maoris, can you put up your slide where people can contact you for additional information?
Sure. I can put that slide up.
Thank you.
I'll edit this one.
Because you said you do traditional Roths. Can you have a two Roths?
Well, the maximum contribution to a Roth is $6,000. You could have two Roths.
But they have to be $3,000 each.
Exactly.
Oh, well, never mind.
And I mean, as long as you're within the income limitation, the income contribution limitation.
Okay.
So my email address, and maybe I'll make this bigger in my website right here. Maybe bigger than that.
So while you're doing that, my other question is about the life insurance. You said if someone ended up, so say for instance, they didn't have health insurance when they retired. And they get to a point where their retirement funds was no longer able to carry their health insurance premiums. So they ended up going on Medicaid. Is that what you're saying? So then if they, but when they pass away, then their life insurance policy would go to Medicaid?
It could go to Medicaid. So I have a separate life insurance policy on my mom, going back to her situation. She has one on herself. I have a separate one. Well, in this one that I have on her, I'm the owner. I'm the payor. She's just the insured. So Medicaid cannot come to my policy because I own my policy. She's just the insured. If she owns the policy and she pays the policy, Medicaid wants to somehow recover money from her because she's the Medicaid recipient. Now, she is on Medicare, and let me make this clear. She is on Medicare because she's over the age. She's on Medicare. Typically, Medicare covers 80% of the cost, and a lot of times people in retirement get a supplemental insurance to take care of the other 20%. But my mom, in her situation, did not. She met the threshold where she could qualify for Medicaid to kick in and take the 20%. Okay. My dad, on the other hand, is had a stroke a few years ago, has paralysis. He's confined to a skilled care facility. He is 100% on Medicaid. It was kind of a rush thing. He got on Medicaid really quick, and he does have assets. At the time when he passes away, Medicaid will look and they will see if he has assets. They're recouping all of that. Properties, bank accounts, they're taking that back. He's on 100% Medicaid, so all of his skilled care facility costs are all covered. However, Medicaid can come and recover it at any point upon his death. Okay. Now, I lost my train of thought, but yes. So he's on Medicaid. So the Medicaid Estate Recovery Program is a very big thing that is not really discussed. But, there's a 5-year look-back period. So for those of us that want to think we're smart and say, well, he had the stroke October 17th, we're going to put him on Medicaid October 17th, and on October 18th, we're going to transfer all of his properties to someone else. Well, Medicaid has a 5-year look-back period. And if there is any transfers of assets that's been made within this window of time, they're going to consider it null and void because they're going to say you transferred these assets out for the purposes of keeping them away from Medicaid. So, I mean, it gets kind of, a little deeper, but yes, my phone number is there. My web address is there. My email address is there. I'm going to put another email address in there.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So if those funds were in a trust, then they wouldn't be able to bother them, correct?
That is potentially correct.
With the 5-year look back, though, say it was put in a trust the year before, would they still go back 5 years and say, well, you just put in a trust, or it doesn't matter?
Nope, it doesn't matter. As long as they are not on the program before you make the transfers, it does not matter.
Okay.
And that's where estate planning and trusts come into play. Again, I have resources, but I do not personally do those. But again, it's all educational.
Right.
So, but hopefully, and I'm going to highlight this in yellow so that it's accessible, easily readable.
Thank you.
Okay, wow, that was very informative. I learned a lot. I'm trying to figure out how to do some things a little bit differently so that I can probably be prepared. I have a few more years to go. I wish I could retire today, but hey. So thank you so much, Maoris, for coming and teaching us about retirement funds. And I pray that all of the women, and I think some gentlemen sneaked on as well, that are listening and watching us learned a lot and will go back and review the taping of this because, you know, you gave us a lot of information so that we'll know what to do, and so we'll be able to be better prepared. Do you have any final words?
Enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Thank you. Pastor Brenda?
No, just wanted to say I absolutely enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to reviewing all of this, and on tomorrow night, having Faith Queen Wiki Sloan back with us to talk about different streams of income, and then we'll close it out on Saturday with the savings class, a session that we did not have because of the emergency. So I thank you guys for being patient, but I think the savings coming in at the end is the right place for it. So I'm excited about that. Thank all of you who came on, who joined us, and those who will watch it even later, the replay. Thank you guys for your support. This is Watch Global Ministry. We are a nonprofit 501c3. So if anyone would like to put us down as beneficiaries to your monies later on, we would be glad to have that in supporting, because we help real people directly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Father in heaven, how we love you and appreciate you. We ask now that you would just cover your women as they go to sleep and slumber on this evening. We ask, Father, that you would just pour back into all of our speakers, that you would pour back into Pastor Brenda, into Faith Sloan, Father, into Maoris Green. Father, that you would bless everything that their hands shall touch, that you would give them even a broader audience in the name of Jesus. And Father, we ask now that you would touch the women and the men that are watching, and touch their finances and touch their households and bless them indeed and enlarge their territories. In Jesus' name we pray and thank you. Amen.
Amen.